whimsy, the newest trend, whimsical rooms, cottagecore, aesthetics. All of this is just running around, super popular on YouTube and Instagram and others, whatever social medias whatever other social media exists. And while I have nothing against creating beauty and trying to enjoy more simple things in life, something about it rubs me the wrong way. And I'll say more about it in a second. Because everybody has asked my opinion because I'm just so popular. I'm just kidding. Nobody's asked my opinion. So I want to add to this conversation about cottagecore and trends too. This can apply to trends in general because I think it's an important thing to talk about. And I've always loved the idea of cottagecore, of a cottage. I think it just goes back to stories when I was a kid. I used to watch Winnie the Pooh a lot, and I also would read stories I don't remember particular ones that stick out. I just remember like a general theme of like the mama rabbit in her treehouse making soup, and then there was her baby rabbits, and it was like a whole rabbit family living this like really cute and cozy life in their treehouse. Very simple, very just simplicity throughout. And so also just like watching Sleeping Beauty, Aurora, when she goes to her cottage, and she grows up there, and it's just like seeing her fairy godmothers put together, like I can't talk, sew her dress for her 16th birthday and bake her cake. Like just seeing the cottage and just like seeing them work in it was just for some reason enjoyable for me.
Flour in 3 cups.
Or even just like Cinderella, though she lived in a really large house, for some reason, like her being a peasant, treated like a servant, I don't know why that like appealed to me as a kid. Something about like the service nature of it, like coming up with a tray of food and serving those around you. Obviously, I don't want to just say that being a servant is amazing because I'm sure that's a very difficult lifestyle. But
I just want to add here that it's not just a difficult lifestyle. It's a terrible lifestyle. And this sounds kind of rude and tone deaf, but what I mean is that being treated like a servant when you're not actually one is actually a very depressing thing. But the nature behind serving others is, I guess, the only thing that appealed to me. But of course, serving when it's your choice is different than serving because you're told to and you don't have a choice.
I think the intention behind serving others is what really drew me to it. So just like that cottage feeling, like Cinderella, like coming out and feeding the birds and being in her very like humble attire with her apron and her cute little bandana over her hair. Just like all of that just like appeals to me.
So if you don't want to lose a nice warm bed, you better get rid of those dreams. Know how? Just learn to like cats.
I saw like cottagecore become a new thing. I felt like it should resonate with me, and it does. Like the beauty of it does resonate me, but I had to really stop and ask myself, like, what about cottagecore is it that's attractive, that like people are attracted to? And I think it's really about the hunger for simplicity, a reaction to something that's been building for a while now. I am a millennial, and I grew up with the explosion of the internet, watching YouTube take off, watching the rise of the influencer, and these trends really fed into a very particular ideal. I saw influencers like become really popular, get a lot of brand deals, get a lot of money, and suddenly they were buying these really big houses, fancy cars. They buy from really expensive places, like their clothes. And I think a lot of us don't live like that. A lot of us that watch their content don't live that way. Most of us live our lives centered around working and working in conditions that may not be the best. working in work environments that may be toxic, or being um, a building for 8 hours a day with no windows and under fluorescent lighting. And I think because of these conditions that some of us are working in, it makes us crave something more simple, something where we can be home and enjoy life a little bit more. But the problem is that if we keep prioritizing these trends, right, and keep buying based on trends, where our life is going to continue to be centered around work, because we're prioritizing expensive things, right? And I think if work were something a little bit more connected to earth, maybe it wouldn't feel so heavy, right? But I think people are starting to crave something a little bit slower, and really try to see the beauty in everyday things, a life that feels like it belongs to them. And so when Cottagecore showed up, I understood and understand the longing behind it. I do. I'm attracted to things that are very cottage feeling. I really enjoy like the cottage economy. But where it loses me is the expensive dishes, the curated, like really expensive floral patterns, buying like just the constant consumerism, the aesthetic hauls, like the fairy gardens, all these things that require us to just keep buying and keep buying. And it's really just feeding the same machine. It's the influencer era, but it's wearing a linen apron, or it's also the influencer era, but with wooden colored furniture. At some point, it was really like popular, at least the people that I would watch, to have like white furniture. But now it's the thrifted look, the wooden furniture. And instead of actually like slowing down, right? Instead of being grateful for the things that we have, connecting to nature, it became another thing to consume. And that's why I think it's an important conversation to have, because it's just continuing this longing that we all have, probably, well, most of us have within us, right? We have this craving for something real. We have this craving to slow down and enjoy life, because life goes by really fast. But the answer got commercialized again. And I think it brings another thought to me, that we are looking for ways to fill our voids, because we're meant for more. We're meant to serve one another, live in deep communities. We're meant to have established deep friendships. And I think a lot of us might be missing that. The way that society is structured, for some reason, feels like we're not really living, a lot of us, in deep communities. At least my experience has been that. And so here's the other thing. I don't want to knock influencers off as a whole, right? Like I've said this about influencers. I'm sure there's a good portion of them, that are money hungry. But I'm also wondering if like a lot of influencers maybe go in with the right intentions, right? To like create content, whatever. But somewhere along the line got carried away with money coming in, and began to sway away from the direction that they were intending to go, which is why it's important to give a little bit of grace. Like I know I've mentioned this influencer thing here, and I mention it because a lot of influencers are driving this trend. But I also think it's important to give grace and not throw rocks at people that may be influencing in this way. However, I do think it is our responsibility to question all the things that we see, and not let ourselves be easily influenced by all the things we see online, and instead become a champion for change, for the change that we want to see, and for speaking out for the things that we see that don't quite add up. I mean, this isn't like a huge deal either, like in the sense of the grand scheme of things, right? To me, it's just more of adding to the conversation about this specific trend, and why I think it's important to stop and ask ourselves, what is it that we really want? And is what we really want to be continuously buying to feed a trend and to fit in some way? So all I'm doing is adding to the conversation, questioning it, and just really adding, is this something that is making us feel good temporarily without achieving what we actually want, which is simplicity and peace? So yeah, that's just me in my thoughts out loud.